All right, so thank you for doing this interview with me today. I really appreciate it, and so does my group and my classmates that are with us. So can you just give a brief background of who you are and what you do?
Sure, so my name is Nicole, and I run Core Dance Project here in Paris. I'm a Laurier graduate, and when I went to Laurier, my intention was to be a school teacher. So I was teaching dance to put myself through school, and then I got a job while I was working at a restaurant, people skills. And a guy hired me from there to be an inside sales rep for a fitness company. So I did sales and marketing for them, but I was also teaching dance, and I just realized I didn't want to have a desk job my whole life, and I didn't like working for other people. So I took the skills that I had from dancing my whole life and teaching since I was 18, and the business side of it from the inside sales and marketing job that I had, and I kind of combined those together. And the deciding factor was actually when I had my daughter Reese. She's now 11. I didn't want her to be in daycare for a million hours a day. So I thought, well, this is the best of both worlds. I can start my own business. I can do what I love. I did love the business side of it. So I knew that I wanted to do something with that. So that's a bit of my background.
Awesome. So where did you start? Like, what were your initial steps in order to making this happen?
Okay, good question. So when I was on maternity leave, there's a business in Brantford called Enterprise Brand. And I went to them, and they if you're on unemployment or EI or maternity leave, they will extend your year by another year and also give you all the resources. So I had a meeting once a week, and then they gave me resources and tools on how to start a business in this area. By that point, I already kind of knew what I wanted to do and where I wanted to do it. Started with one billboard sign, and I rented a small space in a church. So when I did decide to leave Excel Fitness and go on my own, I taught for 2 dance studios as well. And I did the church 1 day a week. So I did a newspaper ad, I did a billboard sign. The internet wasn't as big as it is now, right? So it was mostly that. And then we started with 70 students downtown in the church. We were there for a year, and then we moved to our studio downtown. We grew to, I think we were there for 2 years. We had 150 the first year and just over 200, and then we came up here in 2011.
Awesome. So how many students do you have now?
We have just over 500 students now, plus a growing fitness program. We don't have exact numbers on that, but each one of our fitness instructors kind of has a following, and then there's a kind of a bridge between all of us. So yeah, there's just over 500 kids that dance here. Out of the 500, I would say 100 are competitive.
Okay.
So our focus is definitely recreational, and then now the fitness stuff is taking off.
Awesome. So when you were down at the church, it was just you that you had for you. When you moved to, you said downtown, the downtown location, was it just you as well, or did you have to?
I had just me when I was at the church, and then when I went downtown, we had Carrie who was teaching yoga, so that was kind of bringing in some adults, plus the adults had kids, so they were seeing the facility. And then I think that is when Danny did her first acro workshop. So Danny introduced our acro program the very last summer we were downtown. Natalie did some guest teaching, and I think that is when I hired Ange to do, she kind of shadowed like a half a year of the little kids stuff. And because she always took, there was an adult class that I ran, and she always took that. She loved it, and she had grown up dancing, so she was a good person to really share her passion for dance with the kids. So that was kind of when I knew, okay, I have more than just me to expand. So then in 2011, when we came up here, I was in one room, and then Ange was in another. Carrie continued on with her yoga, and then a year after that, we had Miss Jamie, of course, for ballet. Danny kept going with the acro.
So is there an official number of how many employees that you have working for you
I think
now?
we have like 10.
Yeah.
10, I think. 10 or 13.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So with the over 500 plus students in the fitness program and everything like that, you obviously need the bigger space, which is, I'm assuming, why you've moved
Yes.
so many locations over the last...
Yeah, so we were in the church for a year, and then downtown for 2, and then we realized we just needed more space. So we moved up here in 2011, and we had 2 rooms.
Right.
And then a couple years after that, we expanded into this end, so we would have Studio 3. And then just a few years ago, we expanded into Studio 4.
So 4 fully built.
Yes.
Going to studios.
4, and they're going all the time.
Yeah, that's great.
Sunday, there's only 1 or 2 going, but other than that, every other day, all 4 are pumping.
Awesome. So with all those decisions that you had to make, like obviously there's a ton of risk involved with them. Like say you were to go to another studio and then have 100 kids not want to dance anymore, right? Then you're losing that kind of revenue from them. So was there any any risks involved that you took that you thought you shouldn't take that actually worked out to be a positive thing instead of a negative?
Definitely, and that's another good question. Coming into Studio 3, everybody was like, you're rushing it, you're going too fast, you have to walk before you can run. Even moving up here was a really big endeavor. Like, we hadn't been in business long. I didn't have a business loan. I had to do everything on our own, like having friends helping us build it and having friends' kids help us build it. It was a lot of risk, and we have always been of the mindset you have to spend money to make money. And this business, as much as, yes, I have to make a living, it's not about just having the money for myself. We're constantly expanding, like new gym equipment, or like Jess wanted a bigger room in her room, so we took out the bathroom. Well, that was $1,000 for plumbing and probably $1,200 in labor, plus I still have to paint it. Like, but that's money to me well spent. That's keeping my staff happy. And that's keeping the kids happy because they have more room. Well, if they have to pee, I don't know, but that's okay. But there's definitely been risk involved every step of the way, and there's always going to be those people that are like, you're going too fast. But then you have like my parents and my family and my aunt that are always the ones behind you saying, no, we'll stand behind you. But we've also thought outside the box in order to fill the space. We have birthday parties. We rent the studio for functions. The fitness program, which was meant to kind of originally filled just some later time slots. Then I started working with Shelly one-on-one with personal training, and her knowledge is crazy. So I'm like, you need to teach. So that's why we opened Studio 4 to start with. That was mostly for her. And then it just kind of snowballed into everywhere. But definitely risk involved, definitely like expansions and renovation costs. And now we have 4 studios. That's $6,000 a month in rent.
Yeah.
And that's at the cheap end of Paris. If you look at the other end of Paris, oh my God, I don't even know what we'll be at.
Sure.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So was there any risks that you took that kind of backfired, and like basically like every business has failure, right? So have you come into contact basically with failure, and how did you overcome that failure?
Almost. We've never had a year where we've taken a loss, thank goodness. But when we took on an additional full-time teacher, that was a really big hit for us because, well, I don't consider it a hit because that is what our kids needed. Like, you take some of our level 2 dancers, they need that top-notch teacher. So I have Miss Jamie who teaches ballet and Jess who teaches like everything, and she's comp. Those 2 people are driving our competitive team, and so is our acro teacher. So I mean, those costs are astronomical. Like, every 2 weeks our payroll is over $10,000. Like, it takes over $30,000 a month just to keep our doors open. Between payroll, between rent, between the bills, like the heating costs. You've got, you know, you take the heating for 1 unit, well, we've got 4. Right? You take all of that, like all of those bills, toilet paper for God's sake. Like the bills are just astronomical. So we have to budget carefully. And when I took on, that was probably my biggest setback year. 1, opening Studio 4, and 2, taking on another full-time teacher. Plus 2 years back, we decided we were going to buy the building instead of rent, because yes, Core still pays $6,000 a month in rent, but it's going to an investment for us instead of just going into the abyss of nowhere. Because when we took on Studio 4, if we were still renting, our rent would have been like $8,000 a month. So in the long run, it's ended up cheaper. However, that all happened in the same 2 years. So it was like, also one that was good, but a scary one. We incorporated, so not as much of the liability was on me. However, then that became a double tax year, almost. So I was paying off this, everything was going to the government, plus we hired Jess full time, plus we had the studio, like, but sometimes you have to step back and just take a deep breath and know in the future it's going to be worth it. There's a lot of studios that don't do it. They don't do renovations. They don't have their staff up to date. They have 18-year-olds run their little kids' classes. We've always said we're not going to do that. Our core faculty is who teaches everybody.
For sure.
but definitely risk. Yeah, there's some times where you're like having a panic attack, especially over the summer months. We're not as busy, but that much going out every single month just to keep the doors open.
Absolutely.
Is a lot. So you're right. If even the thought of 50 students leaving, you know, every year we are constantly facing that threat of somebody else moving into town, which we know some year they're going to move into town. And I think that's why we're so eager on keeping the studio clean, always doing renovations, adding new teachers, adding new programs, because if we just get comfortable and somebody moves in, that's going to be reason for somebody to go there.
Just establishing a unique value proposition for your business.
100%, because if we just sit back and, oh yeah, they're going to come, we're the only game in town, that's when if somebody else did open up, they're going to go.
For sure.
But there is no reason. They get treated really well. Our pricing is better than anybody in Brantford. Our faculty is better. Like, the kids are getting solid training, great value for their money. Everybody's welcome, even the core, kindness to the core club. I mean, everybody is welcome here. But I think that's something that we've constantly have been striving for, because we don't want to just sit back and be comfortable.
For sure. And in doing the whole background research as well, you guys have really done a great job in your marketing and like establishing, you know, like the core brand almost, right? Because you have like kids at the Santa Claus parade, for example, in Paris, which is right there 2 minutes away from the studio, wearing all red with the big core down the side and like the core bumper stickers that I see all around Paris and everything like that. So it's really, really good that you did that as well. So just a couple more questions, and then I'll let you carry on with your day. So you mentioned before about like looking towards the future, and these decisions now are going to impact the future. So is that kind of the decision that you make, is like looking at the future and kind of predicting where you want to go? Or
100%. And our business has always been like that. Like, so we're at the church and we're at 70 students. Okay, I can't physically fit anymore here. We're going to go downtown. So downtown, we're down there. Now we have 150 kids to try to fit into that tiny lobby, and the stairs coming down. It was just a natural evolution that we needed to move up here, right? So now we're up here. It gradually evolved. Okay, I make sure that 2 studios are packed. I can't fit anything else in before I open Studio 3. Then Studio 3 is packed. I can't fit anything else in before I open Studio 4. And that's how we are going to be. 4, I think we can maintain. There is a unit available if we want to go to Studio 5. I don't think that we will need that. But the business definitely evolves on its own. But also if something happened, God forbid something happened, I can scale that back then, right? Because we own the building, Studio 4 can then be capped off. I rent that out, we go back to 3. 3 is very measurable. Tell me, I made more money myself when I ran 2 studios than I ever do now. Because there's so much, everybody's like, oh, look at all the kids. Oh, look at this. Oh, she must be doing so well. Okay, but we put so much back, right? Like, and we give back to our community and we try to keep our costs low. So it's definitely not a moneymaker per se. However, we're not losing.
For sure, it kind of is like the full bell curve.
Exactly, and it's not like we're losing money. I can put food on my table. We can go on trips. It's good. I'm happy, and I like how much joy we bring to the kids. And it shouldn't have to bankrupt somebody. It's their choice if they want to do a million numbers. But for the most part, if a kid wants to take dance class, it's very, very economical.
Excellent. Just one more question, I think, or 2. So sticking with the whole kind of future trend, what are kind of your next steps for the studio? Like you mentioned, possibly a Studio 5, depending on how crazy it is in here.
Yeah, we've also looked at a second location. Every studio owner that I have seen try to open a second location other than like Champoutier and Mississauga has failed. So I think that was one option we were playing with, or even doing like a community center program at the other end, mostly just to draw to this end. But this end is booming as well. I think the next step for the studio, there's going to be a lot more level 2 dancers next year. And in doing that, you're going to have like Jess and Jamie and Nikita. Those guys are going to flourish in level 2. I go where I'm needed. So this year I'm very needed on the recreational side. So they are driving a lot of the comp team. And then I'm doing, because there's so many rep classes to cover. But I think the trend is going to be I move more towards the recreational side and junior comp team. and you're gonna see, like Jess is coming on an additional day next year, so she's here 6 days instead of 5. Jamie's here 6 days. Nikita's gonna be working 1 or 2 days. Another skilled acro teacher is coming in for 2 days instead of 1 next year. And I think you're gonna see that kind of form out of it. So then you're gonna have a strong level 1 team because they're trained by us. You're gonna see that level 2 team. You're gonna see the recreational side really grow. This kindness to the core has taken over. Every time we have a meeting, it gets bigger. So that kind of side of it, giving back to the community, is gonna, and the rec side is I think where I'm gonna pull,
Right.
but then the fitness side is taking off too. So I think if we ended up opening Studio 5, that would be a dedicated gym. Like we're expanding this studio this summer because the tumble kids need a bigger room to tumble. So that's another expense that I don't need to spend, and I don't want to spend. However, when I see the tumble kids have the room for a tumble track and that's it,
But you have your customers,
and they're
you're
getting
listening to
so
your
damn
customers
good, right? So I need to knock out that wall. I can fit 2 tumble tracks end to end, and they can go. Same with the fitness classes. Like Ange teaches a pound class and there's 30 people in it. Well, I don't want to cram them in so that they're, oh, I'm not going there, it's too full. But if I knock this wall out, there's ample room. You could put 40 people in here and run a class, no problem. So again, that's not an expense that I have to do. The room is plenty big enough. But to me, I would like to knock that out. So I think once you see that out, the fitness program will grow a little bit. I'll move more level 1 and community stuff. The level 2 is going to really take off next year. The kids are ready.
Excellent. So just a final question, and I'll let you go. So taking, like, being an entrepreneur and starting your own business, and of course there was a lot of things that you kind of needed to give up, which could be a positive thing as well. When you think giving up, it's kind of like it almost is assumed as a negative thing. But you gave up your job working at the business that you're working at prior to this, but you got so much reward from it. You're obviously exceeding now and you're happy doing what you're doing, but was there anything that you kind of needed to give up that you wish that you kept or that you still kind of have?
That's a good question too. There's a couple things on that. So giving up, I remember sitting on the couch with my mom and my dad and Chad going back and forth on the pros and cons of leaving a secure job with benefits to go out on my own. But at the end of the day, that decision had to be made for the sake of Reese. Because we lived in Brantford, my job was in Kitchener. So that would have been an hour in the car there, drop her off at daycare until 5 o'clock, pick her up another hour home. I would have had like 2 hours with her. So that was the deciding factor in itself. And when we first did it, it's cheaper than daycare, right? So now it's snowballed into much more than that. When you are an entrepreneur, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and it becomes something that is very personal. So I don't have a lot of free time, but I can make free time. If I want to go and help at Reese's school, well, then I'll just work at night. Like, I have the flexibility to do that. This job is tricky, especially as Reese gets older, because I work straight nights. So I don't have that time at home to have dinners every night, help with homework, tuck her in every night. However, I have great family that can do that, but a very big sacrifice at the same time. That's nights. I mean, my husband is on nights as well, like he flip-flops, so we're very understanding of each other's schedule. Had I not had an understanding spouse, that would be very, very tricky. But there's not a lot of free time. I did give up a lot of security, and really, at any point in time, things could go right? My husband's got a very secure job, thank God. But you work nonstop. And but like you said, there's always a positive. Like, that fuel is that's my fire, right? That's my fuel to fire up, because I'm the only one that can make this business get bigger. So when I put those hours in, I take it as enjoyment, because I know I'm bettering, well, myself, my family, but also the staff here. And I think definitely sacrifice, but it's worth it.
For sure.
It's definitely worth it. I see what we're bringing to the community. I see like little things like filling the food bank shelves, or all the things the new core kids give back. I see that side of it, and that is a reward in itself. And my child dances, and she's thriving at it. And it's an activity, and it's physical, and you know, she's a well-rounded kid. And I think there's a lot more positives than negative, I will say, definitely.
Good.
And they always outweigh that negative.
Excellent. So just in conclusion, is there any advice that you would give to someone starting starting out a business, whether it's a dance studio, something like a gym, or if it's something completely different, like if they're just releasing a product of some sort.
The biggest thing is believe in what you're doing and stand behind it. Like if you love what you're doing, it's not work. Like my best friend is always on me to go to bed. Well, to me, it is relaxing to sit there and figure out a schedule or figure out how to make something better. Like the one night I stayed up and I just redrew the studio. Like how can I utilize this space better? So it's standing behind what you believe in. It's enjoying what you're doing because then it's not gonna feel like work. And it's knowing that you've gotta put money in. It will come back.
Right.
You know, I had banks tell me at first that there's no way we could buy this building. But then I waited 2 years, and then they're like, no problem, let's do this. £1 million of paperwork and 2 months of solid work, but we did it. So if you have a goal in mind, it's always achievable. You just have to find the right people to help you. Like I had a douchebag guy, I switched banks. Then they were so helpful in making me have that, right? And having the right role models and people to talk to. Like if you talk to people ahead of time, or like when we did the studio for location, I had a map. I pinpointed every studio in the area, and there was a hole here. So I knew that there was possibly
Potential.
a need for it, right? But the biggest thing is don't give up and stand behind what you want and find the right people to help you get there.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate that, and thank you for your insight.
No problem.